Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Just welcome back to our SPNP meeting. Of course, this is a continuation of our meeting from last Tuesday. So, or Monday it was, yes, apologies for that. So, yeah, I'd like to reconvene our dog hearing deliberations. So first of all, we're going to call for apologies. I apologies from Mayor Susan O'Regan and Councillor Andrew Brown. Can I have a mover and a second? Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Claire. All in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, are there any other disclosure of members' interest today? Nothing? Good. Late items? Nothing? Okay, then we shall continue on with our hearing and deliberation of submissions. So I'd like to hand back over to you, Graham Pollard, and your stuffed dog that I see that's on the table. Yeah, and welcome back to all the staff as well. So thanks for your patience. Over to you, Graham.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, everybody. Before recommencing deliberations on the bylaw, I'd like to table amendments to staff recommendations in Appendix 2, appearing on the screen now. It's become apparent that the commentary on the sports ground table in Appendix 2 wasn't correct, in that it's incorrectly stated that the current status quo is that all council-owned sports fields in districts are dog prohibited, when this is not actually the case. Only specified sports fields are dogs prohibited. Conscious this may have affected discussions on the issue at the meeting last Monday, it's 14th of August. So to ensure clarity for elected members on this issue, I'd like to table Appendix 6, which I'm told is now in diligent. This shows the amendments to the sports grounds table to make it clear that not all council-owned sports grounds in the district are dog prohibited. Doesn't change the final recommendation to that table, which recommends that no amendments are made to the draft of the dog control bylaw and the dog control policy in relation to this issue. We will, of course, need to add, as we have on the screen there, recommendations in my original report to accept Appendix 6. I'd also like to refer the committee back to last week's deliberations on Lake Te Kuutu. For information, I'd like to draw the committee's attention to the draft concept plan for this park, which Brad Ward can speak to.
Kia ora, thanks, Graham. Nama te otara, everyone. So we do have, if we've got it available, a slide showing the marahupara of Te Kuutu concept plan. This does show quite clearly where that location will be. Last week we discussed potentially including that up nearer the Albert Street Road to include the barbecue area, but there's quite clear reasons of why the marahupara will be down there adjacent to the water and the outlet there. So we suggest retaining that. By virtue of the marahupara being a play provision, like with any other playground in the district, it will automatically become a dog prohibited area once it is installed. But there is currently no immediate funding in the 2021-31 long-term plan for that to occur. It will be a project that is done at a later date as part of the phased approach for these works. So on that basis, we recommend that, as Graham's original report states, that the marahupara it goes where it is, and that the rest of the park is dog on leash outside the times that were discussed last week. Part of the discussion last week as well included some treatments that would go around the marahupara or any dog prohibited areas, and so we do have those on the next page, which show some basic treatments that could be included as part of that design at such a point that the marahupara is designed with mana whenua.
Thank you, Brad. Okay, any queries around that? I think that's very straightforward. So at some point we will have a playground there. Can't wait, actually, but at this point it's not funded, so may take some time. But at that point we will make, of course, that area prohibited for dogs. No queries? Okay. In that case, we'll back to you, Graham.
Yeah, through the chair, can I ask that those new recommendations C and D about receiving the new appendix 6 and the recommendations are accepted? So that we receive them into the report and the meeting
So
documentation.
we're just going to move
Those
C and
that
D
we'll put up on the
at this
screen.
point.
Yeah, it's just those new ones.
So let's put those back on the screen. So I was just going back to those. Okay, so C and D is all that we're voting on here. Are there,
Madam Chair,
Yes,
can I
Claire?
just clarify Appendix 6? What exactly, is it only those sports grounds that have the prohibitions, or does it list all the sports grounds and then list which ones are,
Yeah,
have the prohibitions?
it is clarifying that the proposal was received from submissions, not from the statement of proposal, but also clarifying the status quo is that only named sports fields in in Schedule 1 of the policy and the bylaw are where dogs are prohibited, not across all council-owned sports fields.
So that's what
So
Appendix
it's
6
just a
covers,
correction.
all those.
It's a correction to that
Oh.
sports fields table in Appendix 2.
Okay.
Could I just
so we'll
ask,
find that on tab 8. Yeah, tab 8 in your diligent.
yeah, I just had a look at that. Is there somewhere in the document that does, as Claire asked, list those and list those that are not?
No, it doesn't list all the sports fields that are currently dog prohibited and those that aren't, but Schedule 1 currently lists all, in the draft bylaw, lists all the ones that are currently proposed to be dog prohibited. So those are already in Schedule 1 to the bylaw. So there are just a few that wouldn't be included.
Okay, so Schedule 1 has all of the dog prohibited, the list of them. We may be adding to that. We've got deliberations still this afternoon.
I just noticed,
Lou?
and I've actually talked to Graham about this, you actually included Sherwin Park. Now, there is some concept that we might be relocating football to Sherwin Park in the near future at some time and removing them from the Te Amutu Stadium, or because we've purchased extra land there. I'm not saying that we ban it, but do we want to just leave that one a little bit in limbo? Because if they have junior football, etc. down there, they would probably have a lot more utilisation of that facility than there is now.
If I could, through the chair, I think you're referring to Castleton Park. Sherwin Park is already utilised by
Not
Te Amutu
Sherwin,
football.
I'm talking, sorry,
Castleton Park.
Castleton Park. No, because we purchased land there with the idea of perhaps relocating. to-
That's future discussion to be had. That's still some time away. That's not immediate.
Okay. But we could have that, that leeway there. That was all I was, that's the only question I actually had other than that. So I'm happy with everything else.
Yeah, so that's not currently one of the sites that is listed in the bylaw. I don't think it's part of this process that it's up for review, is it? No.
Sorry, I had the wrong card, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Lou. I think that's a satisfactory answer. Okay, so we have C and D. We'll ask for a mover, please. We've got a mover and Mike. Can I have a seconder, please, for the item? Thank you, Roger. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you, everybody. All right, so just now we've got that out of the way, we'll just continue on through our deliberations this afternoon. We're going to resume on bottom of page 551, which is the motocross track site in Cambridge. All right, okay, so Graham.
Okay, thank you, Chair. This is the motocross track site, or the former motocross track site in Cambridge. 5 submissions received on this, all supporting the proposal to move from on-leash to off-leash. Nothing more, I think, needs to be said from me.
Okay, so we've got an agreement there that will continue, well, the site is an off-leash dog exercise area. I think that that will make a lot of Cambridge people happy, which is excellent. All right, moving on to the Oak Arboretum.
Okay, thank you. Oak Arboretum in Cambridge, 16 submissions on this one, 15 supported change from on leash to off leash, one submitter supporting on leash only, so a retention of status quo. Yeah,
Right, so
probably nothing more I need to say.
Yep, proposal for off leash, no alternative views. I think again, very popular decision. All right, moving on to Riverside Park.
Okay, no, we didn't actually make any proposal for Riverside Park, but there were some submissions that included it. This is Riverside Park itself. So we propose, well, it is off leash. We haven't proposed to change that.
Yep, retain as an off leash.
Yep.
No alternative views? No. Okay, very good. Settlers Park.
Okay, Settlers Track, which runs from the Riverside Park up to Lola Silcock Park behind the Cambridge Council office, which we propose to change from off leash to on leash. They've had 7 submissions, 1 supporting the change to on leash, 6 wanting to retain it as an off-leash exercise area. Comments around, particularly as the committee discussed last week around Carapero Gully and sort of that sort of bush area there. The committee approved retaining that as dogs prohibited. Settlers Track is sort of an overgrown-ish bush type of track that from a dog's perspective would be particularly good. So our recommendation now is that it should remain off leash.
Everyone's happy with that? I just wanted to raise also, there was a submission around, it was from Charlie Hunter actually, around including Lola Silcock Park. I just wanted to know if there was any staff suggestion around that.
Lola Silcock Park is on leash already. We're not proposing to change that. This is just the Settlers Track between Lola Silcock Park on leash and Riverside Park off leash. So we're not proposing a change to Lola Silcock Park itself, and neither have we consulted on Lola Silcock Park in any way, shape or form.
Okay, we'll just keep it as it is then. Absolutely fine. No contrary views on that. Right, we'll move on to Victoria Square.
Okay, Victoria Square, which I'm sure you're all aware, in the middle of Cambridge, which is a dog prohibited location, host to a cricket ground that has in the past been a first-class cricket ground. I believe Martin Crowe once scored a century in a match there. I don't know what the opposition was like, but apparently he did score a century there. So it is still a cricket ground. It's also the venue for the farmers market and a number of other events as well. We have seen a number of people that actually walk the dog on leash across Victoria Square, going to and from the farmers market. Hence the original proposal, because of the difficulties of enforcement, that we actually move this to on leash. We've had a number of submissions that support that. Some even want it to go off leash, but I think with all the surrounding roads, that probably wasn't favoured by staff. But there are some that wish to retain the dog prohibited status. As I say, it is a sports ground, so.
All righty, I'm looking for some direction here. Roger.
Yes, thank you. Just further to the comment that I made before the meeting started, I understand that you've approached the Cambridge market for their position, but from what you said, we have a lease of that ground to the Cambridge Cricket Club, but have they been approached for their opinion on whether it, whatever status it be?
I'm not aware that we've actually specifically approached them. I'm not aware from the submissions we've received that they put in a submission. I'm not sure whether there's been any approach from the Parks and Reserves guys. No, not from there either.
Philip?
Thank you. But with regards to the farmers market, I'm not quite sure of your question, but it clearly does, they have a sign there that clearly says no dogs within the farmers market of the south where the stands are.
Yeah, I understand that the farmers market do have those. Well, I've seen the signs. I understand they have them because the bylaw says that it's a dog prohibited area. You do see dogs tied up outside the farmers market. Some of them are attended. Some of them are just left there. People waiting with the dog outside and then swap owners and the other person goes in. So there's all kinds of arrangements like that. But we have also seen dogs being walked around the farmers market. I mean, inside the farmers market as well as around the outside of it. So everything's going on.
Where
I
the
think.
food stands are, you mean,
Yeah.
within?
Yeah.
Right.
Some of these submitters are from the farmers market, the stall holders. That I know, and some of them are presumably visitors to the farmers market as well.
Thanks, Graham. Okay, Roger again.
Yeah, sorry, I was going to go on for another aspect. I'm aware that Victoria Square, certainly it appears over the last number of years, has been an increasingly used venue for a large number of community events and family events and picnics and that kind of thing. So with the combination of that use and the sports use, I'd certainly like to see the continuation of dogs prohibited
Thank you,
in
Roger.
the
That's
area.
a good steer. There's lots of commentary on this around town at the moment. Steer from anybody else? Wayne?
Just one point I just like to make in terms of Victoria Square. As Graham has pointed out, we've seen on a number of occasions dogs being walked across the park on lead. So it is an enforcement issue for us if the continuation of prohibited status occurs. One aspect that we did discuss as an option, I'm not sure whether the committee want to turn their mind to it, bearing in mind that this is a unique situation because we've got a sports field activity that occurs only in the summertime, whereas other sports grounds are probably winter and summer. So whether the committee want to allow for dogs to be on lead during winter period, i.e. probably outside daylight saving, to allow for dogs on lead, as opposed to a prohibiting dogs for the whole of the calendar year. So I just really wanted to put that option up. Thanks.
Thank you, Wayne. Further considerations, and it's an option. I guess when I reflect on the number of events, and this is following Councillor Gordon's thoughts as well, there's a wide variety of concerts, winter and summer. Classic cars are often on there. There's a wide variety of different events on Victoria Square now. And I think that that's likely to continue. So I am sitting in the continue status quo, and I'd like to encourage more family-friendly events onto the square as well. That's right. Any contrary views? Everyone's happy with that?
Yeah.
Dale Marie.
How many incidents have we had on Victoria Park with dogs? You know?
So they're prohibited at the moment.
Yeah.
So there are some dogs that do wander there, but I doubt many are reported. Would that be true?
Madam Chair, I'm not really sure. Yeah, for that exact reason, dogs shouldn't be there. We've been aware of dogs that are there, obviously, but in terms of formal complaints, none that I'm aware of off the top of my head.
That'd be similar with a lot of sports grounds too, I would have thought.
And it probably doesn't differ hugely from areas where dogs are permitted but on leash. You know, generally incidents are going to come when the dogs are off leash or not controlled. So that may not be a defining point between the two controls for this park.
Okay, I've still got a sense that we'll stick with status quo. We'll leave it at that. Okay, everyone happy? Mike?
Just one last comment. I mean, the submitters, there's only, what, 17 of them. if we take out the off-leash ones, which is never going to happen, supporting to on-leash, you know, it's 10 to 5. It's 2/3 to 1/3 just to consider. I actually quite like Wayne's idea. I mean, I hear what you're saying, Liz, around it is increasingly used, but over winter, you know, even car events tend not to go on there because it's so wet. Yeah, hey, personally, I'd quite like that to be explored, whether that could be drawn up during the day and we could come back to it, but just to bring back something around some hours and some times with daylight saving or whatever, I just think it's got some merit to explore. This is my view.
Yeah, Monty.
Partly because Joe's sitting over there and she'll kill me if I don't raise this. So I've just treated Cambridge Community Board submission, which is on leash on Victoria Park. So just to slightly counter your numeric analysis, that Cambridge Community Board would consider that they're more than a single submitter.
All right, so this is complicating things now. So you're suggesting, Mike, that we moved to winter on leash?
Yeah, I'm suggesting that Wayne in his great mind does a little bit of work on this over the next couple of hours or something, brings something back as a recommendation. It just is another option. Like some of the other ones we've done with Lake Takutu, possibly, that sort of thing.
Okay, all right.
I'll support that.
I was going to say, is there more support, Brad?
If I could, through the chair, just say, I think that it's quite clear. I don't know how much work we need to do, Mike. I think it's either daylight saving hours or not. That's a nice, clear distinction. We've got that consistent with our other parks like Lakeside Reserves, toilets and things like where we change our maintenance schedules for the summer season. So I think for consistency, we'd keep it around that.
So our winter hours for on leash is 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Or would we put a time on it, or would we just blanket say in the winter time and the at any time? Just for clarity.
Can I just add, in terms of the daylight saving, this being a cricket ground, the cricket season generally does not start or finish outside of daylight saving hours. Quite often, well, let's say daylight savings sort of end of September. It's, in my experience as a cricket umpire, it's very unusual to have matches before daylight saving starts. And the season usually ends that first weekend of April. So daylight saving, I think, would work for the cricketers. And they don't practice on the field. They generally go elsewhere for their practice.
Monty.
Look, that's sounding pretty good to me. I want to keep it really simple. So just on off daylight savings or not works, just considering the farmers market. If you do this, have you compromised the farmers market ability to say no dogs? Do they have the authority to say that?
Graham, I'll just get you to respond to that because that's quite an important. Wayne is going to respond to that.
Yeah, just in relation to making it really simple, Schedule 1, dog prohibited areas, Victoria Square, Victoria Street during summer hours only. And summer hours are defined, means from 10 a.m. on the last Sunday in September each year until 10 a.m. on the first Sunday in April the following year. So it's just a change to the schedule. If you want to go down that period.
Yes, I think what Monty was getting at was that the portion of Victoria Square that is utilised by the farmers market, that would then allow dogs on lead during the winter hours through the market as well, wouldn't it?
Yeah, yes.
And is that what we want? Is everyone happy with that? Clear.
Liz, I thought that there was a comment that the farmers market have the power or the authority to put up a sign, dogs prohibited, if they want.
They put the signs up because the bylaw
because of the
makes the
bylaw.
square
So that just because of the
prohibited, so
leasing,
they're
they don't.
just helping to enforce
Oh,
that
but-
is my understanding. I think from
But
my
they're leasing-
conversations
they're
that they
leasing-
weren't really the organisers. I hope my memory serves me correct. So you can take this one way or the other. Feeling they were okay either way, to be perfectly honest. I hope I've not misrepresented that.
I'd be more comfortable if they had a lease and they were able, through their lease agreement, to be able to say they can prohibit dogs.
Maybe just
Brad.
Through the chair, not being the property manager, but from my understanding, they don't have a lease. It's with the cricket club. They have I think it's a license to occupy that space.
Just for the market mornings on a Saturday morning. All right, we're a little bit divided here. I'm going to go around the room, and if you are supporting the winter on leash on Victoria Square, could you please raise your hand? Winter time on leash. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
5, 4, and then 1, 2, 3. Dale Marie, where are you at?
I'm a little unsure because we say this, and I've been to markets and stuff, and then we get these mass dogs, these huge dogs that turn up to these things, and they outweigh my pug and all the other little dogs that do and behave well at these places. I'm just a little bit scared on the big dogs that we can't monitor. And then if the farmers market doesn't have the money to move them off, what happens to them? That's the only reason is I'm a little bit scared about, do we have the ability to give them some kind of money where they can move the dogs off in the farmers market time? I'm agreeing with dogs being on leash at the park. I'm just worried about that space in the farmers market area.
Okay, Monte.
Can we just check with people behind me whether there's an instant answer on that? Whether a license to occupy would give the farmers market the ability to exclude dogs from their area?
Yep, I think that's actually a really good idea. So let's just park this. Let's start, take a breath to see if that is an option to include in that license to occupy, and we'll return to the matter a little bit later on in the day. Is everyone okay with that?
Going back into the submissions, what does the Cambridge Market submission say?
Okay, so we'll bring that back at the same time that we look at the license to occupy.
I think there is one, isn't there?
There's more than one, and so let's come back to that.
Certainly some stall holders there that have put in submissions, and I certainly know of some that were talking about the dogs staying prohibited. There may be some that were happy to support on leash. I can't recall which particularly, and I can't recall the market organisers themselves putting in a submission, but they may have done without, but under their own name probably, rather than as the farmers market.
I agree with you. So let's, if someone can investigate that while we're moving through the other items, that would be good, and let's return to that later. Is that okay, Joe? Yeah. I think I'd rather make an informed decision and really understand where we sit with. But I appreciate that the submissions from the markets were difficult to decipher whether they were stallholders or attendees as well. So that was my recollection. Okay, as I said, we'll come back to that. Let's move on to Vogel Street. So the proposal is to go off leash. And we are
Don't
on
have an awful lot to work on there.
page 558.
2 in support, 1 wanting it to stay on leash, and 1 just making the comment on the size of the location.
All right, everyone happy with the off leash? Again, another opportunity for dog lovers. Okay.
No comment on this. I'm just, if we make that off leash, that Payne Park is an unfenced area. close to Rest Haven, but also close to paddocks that include horses from the RDA. I just think having it off leash would actually have a risk of dogs aggressively approaching either retired people or the horses in the RDA paddocks.
So this is Bogle Street, south of Payne Park. So if you've got your maps here, it is on page 5. Do you want to lead us? Yeah, do you want to lead us through that, Graham? So you're right. Yeah, so Payne Park is the one where the water tower is.
Yes.
And then you go down the hill. That's where the RDA is down the bottom. So this is Bogle.
The RDA actually have use of 2 of the top paddocks. They're not all down the bottom of the hill.
Bogle Street. Mike.
Just so this is between Rest Haven where the water tower is and then sort of L's down alongside Rest Haven. Is that correct? With it,
Yes.
yeah. So, hey, I go to Rest Haven most days and hey, what I can tell you is there's a lot of the folks in there haven't got a lot to do and they like anything that's happening out and about in that green space. So from their point of view, and I spend a bit of time with them, they really enjoy seeing any interaction and anything moving up there, and they really enjoy the dog thing. Not that so the dogs aren't an issue for them. Yeah, on behalf of the residents, I think I can fairly say they actually quite enjoy seeing people out there throwing a ball and a frisbee and that sort of thing. Not take away the road is there.
All right, someone's putting pictures up on the screen. Was that you, Matt? Do you want to talk us through this?
Yeah, so I've just highlighted in the blue is the proposed dog area, and then the RDA is the pink area where they graze horses. I'm not 100% sure, but the area just below the blue is potentially not being grazed anymore, more so down towards the river.
Okay, so the pale blue is the area that we're talking about, and the proposal is to go off leash. You happy with that, Mike? Anyone else got a comment?
Just personal opinion, I live in that area and I drive past that upper pink area, and I can assure you that it is currently sometimes occupied by horses from the RDA.
Okay, any other comments? Philip?
No, yeah. But I think the area down the bottom there, Mike, though, it's really steep. So would Rest Haven residents go down there and they've got the cycle track runs down through the blue and the pink. Payne Park, they're 100% be watching people, which is all the flat area up by the road there.
Yeah, and there's more that flat area up the top. I'm talking down to that.
And I've had requests from a lot of the residents about a doggy do bin in that flat area of Payne Park. So that's quite a steep area there, and you'll see the cycle track between the blue and the purple. It doesn't run through the paddock like it shows there.
Matt's just denoted that line to the middle of it. That's where the crest of the hill is there. It drops down from that point. So there is quite a large flat area up top. Well, a flat area up top.
Okay. Look, I think I'm getting a sense that there's still dog off lead is still the preferred option. Just making sure that everyone's okay. I know, Roger, it's not yours, but but is everyone happy with the proposal to go off leash? Yeah, and hopefully the fact that that is the top of the hill that you wouldn't see, the horses wouldn't see or get too excited by the dogs, hopefully. Yeah, okay. All right, we'll move forward. Okay, we're going to move into Maungatautari ward locations. So we'll start with Mighty River Domain.
Okay, again, this wasn't a location that we made any proposals on, but we've received 4 submissions around that. The submission 41 around prohibiting dog access to the boat ramp, there wasn't any indication of exactly which site it was, but we couldn't think what other boat ramp they would be talking about. Other than that, there are 3 submissions around increasing the on-leash availability of the Mighty River Domain. So we're not recommending any change.
Okay, so our recommendation is status quo. Any queries around that, Mike?
Yeah, just ask a query around that. That submitter sees no reason for dogs to be prohibited at the boat ramp. Just give me some clarification. A dog in a boat, launch it, it's actually fine, eh? Is it? I just need to know that as a user.
But I would have thought so. It's presumably the concern is for dogs running around on
Yeah,
the
all right,
boat
fine.
ramp, and
That's
therefore
good to know.
it's a health and safety issue, at
Yep.
least as far as the dog's concerned. Anyone trying to rescue it, I suppose.
Right, now, I've always been too worried to put my dog in the boat in case I get fined. So now I know I can. Thank you.
Dogs in vehicles are allowed. Yep. Any other queries around that? Any other opinions? Status quo, everyone's happy with? Then we'll move on to Waipuki.
Okay,
This is a bit trickier too. I did have a query around the map, actually.
my preference is to throw this across to the guys on my right who know this part more than I do. So I wasn't expecting that one.
So I guess my query just was around, are we talking about just one area at Waipuki? Because there's kind of like 2 separate swimming areas usually. Do you know what I mean, Brad?
In terms of the swimming areas, so you've got the main beach that's down on the left, and you've got the sort of launch area down by the inlet on the right hand side. As I currently understand it, Carl, that area is dog on-leash. Yeah. What we are proposing, we look at this again when we do the wider master plan for Waipuki Park and the acquisition to the north. When we redo that, we can look to find some other spaces as well. But I think, Carl, through this process, we're also looking at taking a bit more of the paddock and the lower platform off the farmer to include for a dog exercise area as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, through the chair, that's correct. So you've got, I think, the time limit for the water access piece, but then potentially off fleet all of the time for the separate paddock area, or the area that's currently a paddock.
Okay, all right, no, that sounds good. So we'll be moving to the new hours as
Yeah, and
recommended.
those hours are the consistent hours that we were
With
talking
everything
about
else.
last week for Lake Takutu, only Lake Takutu at this point.
Monty, are you happy? Is your patch? Yep, all good. Okay, that's great. We'll move to that new recommendation. Everyone happy? Yep. All right, okay, we're going to be, just before we finish off the Cambridge area and surrounds, we'll come back to Victoria Square. I believe we have an update, if that's okay, and then we'll move on to Te Awamutu shortly. So we have some writing on the screen. What does it say, Graham?
Yeah, hang on, I've got to get my, I didn't bring my glasses. Around. Actually, I'll read it out because I can do that here. Insert into Schedule 1 prohibited areas, Victoria Square, Victoria Street, during all summer hours and during winter hours in any part of the site being used as a market, such market being authorised by council.
So just
So
following
that's
on, that just captures the commentary that we mentioned. So dogs are prohibited during summer hours on Victoria Square, and also when the farmers market, for example, is in operation as well. It's a market that's authorised by council, only within that part of the site being used for the farmers market.
Okay, is everyone happy with that? So this is the dog prohibited area. Marcus?
Yeah, just in clarity, instead of saying like what is the definition of summer hours, should it say like daylight saving
That
summer
will
hours?
be
or-
that's defined in the policy and the bylaw. I'm just looking at this, looks as if it's prohibited during all summer hours and during the winter hours.
So that means I can only take my
That means
dog
all of
there
the time.
from
That sounds
July.
like all of the time.
Through the chair, it's prohibited during all summer hours and during winter hours in any part of the site being used as a market. So in the winter time, it's only the part of the site being used as a market, which is dog prohibited. And it's not just any market, it has to be authorised by council.
But there is also a definition of summer hours and winter hours.
Yes, so the latest draft of the bylaw, and that aligns summer hours and winter hours aligns with daylight saving hours.
Excellent. We have reached a consensus on Victoria Square. Very happy with that, and hopefully community board are happy with that as well. Joe, yeah, it's halfway there. It's pretty good. Okay, all right. Let's move to Te Awamutu. So we're going to go to page 561.
Okay, so as we doggedly make our way through this document,
Oh, that's it. Let's start the dog jokes. It is after lunch after all.
we move into the Te Awamutu Kiki ward, the Kiki domain. And the proposal was to prohibit the dogs from the playing fields areas. So rugby and cricket. Only 5 submissions, most wanting to retain the off-leash, the current off-leash provisions, 1 supporting the prohibition, 1 supporting no dog prohibition at all. I believe that was something like many hectares worth of the domain remaining when those
Yeah, that's
sports
correct.
fields are
So,
taken out.
so Kiki domain is approximately 24 hectares, and we're proposing about 2.5 to be prohibited.
So what you're saying is plenty of space still to have your dog off leash. So it's really just the sports grounds we're wanting to prohibit. Everyone agreement with that? I think that's very sensible.
Totally agree with that.
Okay, excellent.
Well-
Oh, here we go. Marcus,
Yeah.
you don't have a dog.
Well, no, I don't have a dog, but I just think that about the users of the domain, that, like during the playing season, like the rugby ground and the cricket ground, like maybe make it prohibited, but have it prohibited all year round. It just, yeah, I just think that's a bit extreme.
I think, Marcus, the rugby ground could be utilised a lot more during summer. They're talking of having touch rugby out there. Yeah, they're having touch rugby out there, and the cricket ground is being utilised, as I say, in the winter months now as well a little bit. So they use it for training and running around, and so.
Everyone happy with that? Okay, move on to Figaro, page 563.
Might be one that Carl can speak to. And this is just one of those small pocket
Leash.
areas that is currently the default on leash, but the proposal is to make that off leash.
Madam Chair, I think the point of clarification here is it's not the area that's used at the moment as a reserve, it's the paddock adjacent to the reserve that's going to be used for this purpose. So I think a couple of the submitters haven't made that distinction, but that is correct. By default, it would be on leash now. The proposal is for it to be off leash.
Marcus.
I see someone's also brought up about the renaming of the park. I think like the school has renamed itself to the correct name of Pika Pikaro. Have we got a policy in place that like the signs and stuff need to be renewed, that will just be renewed with the new name?
So through the chair, obviously, this is out of scope for this discussion, but we are working our way around our parks to provide more mana whenua input into our signage and so moving forward with our renewal program and our new signs, we'll be looking to make our signs bilingual and also reviewing the names. So they may have a dual name in the future. And at this point in time, when we go through that conversation with mana whenua, there might be an opportunity to look at the name of this reserve.
Yeah, thank you through you, Madam Chair. I support having it on leash there. I know the area quite well. I live not very far from there. And you do have an off-leash area in Chatsfield Park, which is only a hop, skip and a jump away. So, I mean, if you want off-leash, just go to Chatsfield Park. It's right there.
So just for clarification, so the recommendation is to go off leash.
There is a recommendation. There's one there. There's two there off-leash submitters.
Oh, sorry, Matt.
Yeah, so I've just put up on the screen, currently the pink area is the reserve, as you currently know it. The area in the blue is currently grazed, and we can take it out of grazing, and that would be where we would have the off-leash area. So it wouldn't impact on the actual reserve itself, current reserve.
Okay, so everyone's happy with the recommendation here on page 564? Yeah. Is that okay, Lou? You're good? Yeah, okay. All right, going to the Te Amutu Memorial Park, on page 564.
Yes, thank you, Te Amutu War Memorial Park. Quite complicated in trying to describe the areas of the park that we mean. In trying to reference the north bank of the Mangahoi stream, and trying to do that concisely within the statement of proposal, I think has caused some disagreement as the area that we were referring to. We are, of course, referring to an area within the park, not outside the north boundary of the park, but also including the walkway out to the west towards Racecourse Road and Eileen Montefiore Park as well. Sort of all wrapped up in that sort of Mangahoi Stream Valley area. So we currently have off-leash on the north bank of the Mangahoi Stream. We are proposing that become split on leash, off leash. So we introduce the on leash hours, the same as for Waipuki and Lake Tekarutu. So between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. or 6 p.m. depending on the time of year. And that also extending, I believe, down the walkway as well, out past the tennis courts and out towards Racecourse Road. We've had quite a few submissions, as you can see, quite a lot of submission points there. The majority in favour of those hours, some wanting it to be on leash at all times. So that will be a full change from the current off leash.
Okay, thank you. All right. Let's hear what anyone's got to say. Lou, you want to go first?
I think it's incredibly, it's going to be quite difficult you have to actually really designate where that area is so that everyone's fully aware, because we don't want anyone around the memorial, the war memorial, and also remember that the fountain area is actually a part of the war memorial as well. So that's the Peace Fountain. So we actually we don't want, and the playground area, once again, you've got that 5 metre area, haven't you, around our playground. So as long as you designate all that, I personally haven't got a problem. Okay, there are others that will, but I'll say quite openly. So really, I would suggest, even to the extent of saying that the Air Force Bridge, which is the link bridge that goes across by the playground, becomes excluded to dogs as well. Put a dogs prohibited sign on the other side of that, which makes sense to me, because we don't, once across the road, they're really in a prohibited area anyway. As far as like on leash area or prohibited area, on leash area.
So this is
I don't know what everyone thinks, but that was my sort of direction, is because at the moment we're not talking of developing, are we, Brad, anything more over the river at this point in time?
So once again, future plans and the long-term plan for Marahupara across that side of the stream.
Yeah.
But again, that's not any in the immediate 10-year plan. So yeah, again, as you say, that will have that immediate dog exclusion once it does go in. Otherwise, yeah, there's no immediate development for that side.
Because we'd be happy, because there's quite easy access from Christie Avenue or along over the bridge and walk along that alleyway and into that area with dogs on leash and then let them go. But we'd rather prefer them have them not on leash or anything in that memorial area.
Yeah.
Allow that for the kids' playground, et cetera.
That's right. So anything north of the stream is dog off leash. If they were to cross the bridge, then at that point they would need to be on leash.
Yep.
And same again, past the netball courts, they're off leash as well. So yeah, so the area that you're describing, where a lot of the memorial features are in the park, they will all be on leash only.
And would you, the other thing, just one other question I had is with the eel weir, would you ban dogs out of that river through that, because that you've got an eel weir that is quite significant, just a little bit further up there. And there's the old swimming pool where they used to have tiamutu swimming in the river there, and then down for the conflicts of the two rivers. Whether you do that as well, just a thought. People ask that.
Yeah, I think that's reasonably hard access from that side of the stream, isn't it, to get down to there? So
Yeah, it is.
it might be quite ambitious dogs.
It would be an ambitious dog, but what I'm saying is the boundary that you draw would be along that river until you came to the bridge to go over to by the netball courts. That's the army bridge, as we call it. So just have that as part of it. That was my thought anyway.
I think the key to this is how we delineate and describe it both in terms of words, in terms of the policy and the bylaws. So that could be a challenge, but also by the sounds of things, the signage on site as well, to sort of where the on-leash starts. So whether it's crossing the river or back again or whatever, because there seems to be some contention that the current signs and the current bylaw don't match. So that's something that we ought to address.
All right, thank you. Okay, so I just want to make sure we've landed in the right place here. So I think we're all agreement to go to the hours. Yep, and the recommendation is still to stay the same. You're happy with that? And I did note obviously that staff will take great care to provide the clarity in terms of, amending the policy and bylaw and to ensure there's some, really a good level of understanding of the areas that are going to be included.
Yeah,
Happy with that, Graham?
can I suggest that we actually work with elected members who've got an interest in this to make sure that we've got those descriptions right?
Yes. That would be excellent. Okay, everybody, we'll move on. I'm going to move to, are we happy? No, she's, no, there's no, I guess I was probably referring to the signage.
Oh, the signage is.
Yeah, but and here just talks about the policy and making sure we've got that absolutely clear in the bylaw as well. That it's quite a hard description. I think people were confused. That some of the submitters are a bit confused as to what we were meaning or the intent. Okay, we'll move on to Ōhaupo. So we are on page 567.
Okay, for the Ōhaupo Memorial Park, the proposal was to relocate the exercise area to the lower reserve. And my understanding, and these guys will correct me if I'm wrong, that the current sports fields would then be dog prohibited if they're not already. Can hopefully either side of me can confirm that.
So that the recommendation is to prohibit on the sports fields, which was supported by the submitter here last week, and to create a new area below the play centre. Claire.
Yeah, thanks, Liz. So I'm supportive of it, and I just wanted to check with Brad because I think we had a discussion with Debbie Glasson, from the Ōhaupo community about getting access to that new off-leash area. Like, was it you I was talking to about maybe just doing mowing a strip from the car park along the back of the play centre just so people could get through there?
Yeah, it was. Thanks. We haven't had a chance to explore that yet since last week, but if this was supported, then we'd definitely look to try and achieve that. Yeah.
I think it can be simply done.
Yeah, I was going to remember the width and if we can get a mower through there easily or not. But if we can, then be an easy win.
Okay. All right. Okay, everyone's happy with that. We'll move on to the Peak Lakes, which is still on page 568.
Okay, the three peat lakes of Rotomanuka, Rotopiko and Rotuna. And also Naruto as well, the walkway. We're not proposing any change to the walkway at Naruto, which is off leash adjacent to the sailing club car park, but on leash for the rest of the walk. So we were not proposing any change to that, but for lakes, for the other three peat lakes, proposal is to prohibit dogs from around those lakes, really for conservation reasons. And we have some lengthy submission points from Department of Conservation, and certainly these are strongholds for Piweto, excuse me if I've got that slightly wrong, the spottless crake, which is an at-risk and declining species, so which seems to be present on all three lakes. And wildfowl are certainly susceptible to disturbance from dogs. We did have a submission last week, verbal submission suggesting that the recreation reserve at, I think it's Lake Rotuna, be an on-leash area. Concerns expressed since was suggesting that, yeah, if you have the dogs on leash, then there's a temptation to then go walk them around the lake either on leash or off leash. So certainly our conservation people are a bit concerned about that one. There is also comment around dogs used for hunting. They will of course be under the license of the hunter, and they're obviously useful in terms of wildfowling for the non-indigenous species. So our proposal is that we keep the prohibition, or that we make those lakes prohibited, those three peat lakes and Naruto unchanged. If you can follow all of that.
Okay. Brad.
I was just going to try and summarize what Graham said there. We've got some significant partnerships in these areas, working with DOC, Living Waters, plus a raft of other partners and stakeholders that are really, really key here. Some of these native birds, the matuku and the puweto, are very, very vulnerable, and especially at breeding time. But also, even we want them to be inviting to those areas, to draw them back in throughout the year, not just around the breeding season. So as a staff recommendation, I'm strongly in support of our recommendation here to protect these areas from having dogs on them.
Okay, yep. So there was, I know last week, a person who just asked whether we, I think it was Rotuna actually, wanting to just, have dogs on leash just in the picnic area, but I think I heard that you weren't supportive of that. So no, okay.
Just request, Brad, you still support the idea of having gun dogs or a dog to retrieve down birds, etc. during the, you still allow that to happen?
Yeah, so those are done by permit. So yeah, we can.
And under the control of a licensed game hunter. So everyone happy with that, Monty?
Yeah, I just want to further that, what you were saying, acknowledge the gentleman who presented on Rotuna. I thought it was a really well considered and well argued case, but I fully understand and accept the conservation argument. So I support the prohibition. I just wanted to acknowledge his submission.
Yeah, and of course Lake Naruto, yeah, still dog on leash. So that's a very popular dog walking area. Okay, everybody happy with that? No contrary views, excellent. We'll move on to the Pirongia Esplanade.
Yeah, just the one submission on a proposal there that we would, I think we're just proposing to make official what is happening in the area, that the Pirongia Esplanade and the Franklin Street Reserve changing from on-leash to off-leash. I think that makes it quite a large off-leash area. But the walkway from Franklin Street, which I gather from that is quite narrow, it's probably safer for people who are wary of dogs to, if that is on leash. Once you're through and out the other side, you can let the dog go. It's got plenty of area to run around. So just the one submission that basically the submitter disagreeing with changing the walkway to on leash.
Okay, Claire, you happy with that? Bruce?
It's a fantastic area for being, you know, that esplanade area for dogs off leash. And I understand what you're saying about just having that on leash rule just while they're down that walkway. I mean, it's not a particularly long walkway anyway. Yeah. No, it's great to see it. Yeah, fully support it.
Okay, thank you. All right, everyone's happy with that. Then we'll move on to Kikapuku Mountain. Manga. So, Mount Graham.
Yes, thank you. This is probably it is almost as big as Lake Te Kutu, judging by the number of submissions, 111. Really, we have arguments both for and against dogs on the manga. We had options in the statement of proposal to prohibit the dogs altogether, to allow dogs on leash part of the way up the manga, and we identified the water tanks area. Another idea was possibly if council had some kind of a permit system. We don't have a permit system. If we went that way, we'd have to invent the system. But if there was real support for that, then we'd have looked into it. There weren't many supporters of that option. Carl can probably speak better to the history of this, but the Te Kopua Marae has been requesting prohibition of dogs from the manga for a number of years. I believe this has been discussed at committee and the consultative committee in the past. This has really been our first major opportunity to really consider the pros and cons. From the dog walkers' perspective, they really like the fact that it's quite a unique environment locally, in terms of you can give the dog a really good uphill, downhill dog walk in the bush, or in that sort of overgrown margins. I'm not quite sure how often they go into the bush. Dogs, of course, are supposed to be off leash. We hear lots of reports that, dogs are supposed to be on leash, but we hear lots of reports that actually very often they're off leash. We heard from Dominic Viles last week and the submissions, the cultural aspect of this for Mana Whenua and for the prohibition of dogs. I'll say for the dog walkers, there was a question I asked him afterwards: is it just dogs or is it just all animals? We're just concentrating on dogs because it's a dog bylaw. We're concentrating on dogs because it's a dog bylaw. If there was a llama bylaw, then they'd presumably, without wanting to sound facetious, it's other animals as well that they would have an issue with that aren't part of, I think, the natural ecology. Would that be a fair representation of the position? So it isn't dogs that are being singled out. It's just that this is a dog bylaw. Do we keep on leash? Do we prohibit? Do we find some meeting of minds in between?
All right.
Our recommendation through the executive was that we move to prohibit dogs from Kakapuku Manga.
Absolutely. Okay, I see that there. Thank you. Okay, everybody, and take all the submissions as pre-read. So interested in your comments on this item. Who would like to go first? Claire.
Yeah, thanks. Look, I think this is a really difficult issue because there was a strong message from members of the public that they really value being able to take their dogs on the manga, but for all kinds of different reasons, actually. Yeah. However, it did make a big impression on me, the submission from Dominic and also, yeah, the other submitters from the marae and that. And yeah, so the decision that I've come to, you know, after a lot of thinking is that I just feel that we have to honour, I have to honour, yeah, what that feedback from the Te Kupu and marae really, and yeah, say, well, yeah, we just have to go with prohibited really. That's where I've ended up really. I mean, I don't see how we can try and demonstrate a commitment to the treaty or inclusiveness of Māori perspectives and not take the seriousness of this in terms of what it means to them for their sacred manga.
Thank you, Claire.
Not very popular, I guess.
Lou?
Just quickly, as a point of clarification, does that exclude farm dogs, all the farms that operate on the manga?
So we're talking about the public reserve,
Does that exclude?
not private, not
There
private
are a
ownership.
lot, there's quite a lot of properties on that mountain, all around, or the manga, all around it. And I know that quite a few of them utilised dogs. In fact, I work with 3 of them.
Yeah, so any private ownership, we're not looking at private ownership here for our bylaws. This is just the public area. All our public reserve is what we're considering here. Mhm. Okay, any other perspectives, Marcus?
Yeah, I think it's very disappointing if we ban dogs, because there's nowhere else in this area that dogs have a chance to, well, on lead, to go through a forested area, to climb any kind of hill. Everything around here, like the road and stuff, is all flat. We're not allowed to go up Pirongia. I don't have a dog, but yeah, like we're not allowed to go up Pirongia. And people come from Te Kawa and everywhere to use the mountain. It's very popular. And I think we could look at some kind of compromise, at least that all parties are happy. And it's just, I think, yeah, I just think if we ban this, well, where else can we provide in our district to get that kind of experience with your dog? It's not like walking up Mangatautree with all the Kiwians things. If they're on lead, you know, even if they go partway up the track or even off to the old track, so that they're separated from walkers as well. I mean, we've got that other reserve option from like Laurie Hovard's place. It's now the plantings up there are growing quite well. I mean, you could do a couple of tracks through there, and that was previously farmland. I'm surely there's some way that we could work around this rather than a blanket ban.
Thank you, Marcus. Dame Marie.
Tēnā tātou. I, as you know, advocate for a Māori voice, so I'm going to advocate for the prohibition. We don't have many tapu spaces left in this whenua. And if we look at that map over there, we know how much of those tapu spaces are no longer there. I understand as a dog owner how important it is for my dog to go for runs and get the exercise that she needs, both of them. But I'm going to strongly advocate that we prohibit dogs on that particular maunga. Most of those dogs are driven to that place to run. Most of those dogs could be driven somewhere else to be run. And the taputanga could be restored to that maunga, because every time I've been to that maunga, there has been dogs off leash, and it's disturbing to see how many dogs are off leash on that maunga. I'm strongly going to advocate to prohibit them, because looking at the rest of the parks that we are enabling in this district as a whole, I think it would be a great indication from us and reflective of our partnership, at least for one place to go back to being tapu. So, tēnā tātou.
Thanks, Dame Marie. Okay, I'm going to not ask for a show of hands. I've got a sense that we are mostly aligned here with the recommendation to prohibit dogs onto Kekepuku manga. Would that be a fair assumption? I'm looking around the room, I'm getting a lot of nods. Yeah, sorry, Marcus, I think you're a lone voice on this one. Okay, so are there any other opposing views that want to continue being dogs? Just to be sure. Okay, all right, so the recommendation is to prohibit dogs on Kekipuku Maunga. I think we were mostly in agreement with that. Okay, we'll move on to page 580, which is, we're into other, which is significant movement now. We're on the home stretch, everybody. So we're going to have a look at the, we've got a recommendation there around the expressway.
Yeah, these are the locations that have come up from the submissions. Staff have commented on those. The one that staff are suggesting that we take forward is the land running on the, that will correct me if I'm wrong here, the St Kilda side of the expressway. There's a submission saying that there's no provision for dog exercise in the St Kilda area.
Pukeko Grove.
So Pukeko Grove, or behind Pukeko Grove and Alan Livingston Drive, it's a stormwater site already. The thinking was that actually that could be a suitable off-leash exercise area. Matt's just there you go.
I think that makes a lot of
Matt.
sense. Everyone happy
So
with that?
there's you see quite a residential area there. So that was the only suggestion or the only proposal that we suggest bringing forward that's going to actually require any change to the policy and the bylaw. Anywhere else would be either not council owned like Mangakawa, or would be the default on leash anyway.
Okay, thank you. All right, everyone's in agreement with that. Very good. Okay, we'll move on to our next one, which is the accommodation standards, our emergency welfare centre access, page 582.
We are on the home straight, I think,
We are.
in that we've now got to the other policy and the operational proposals. So accommodation standards, that basically in the policy, we should be stating that dogs should have shelter reflects requirements of the Animal Welfare Act, requirements of the Animal Welfare Act anyway, so that should be the case, but we just want to make that clear in the policy. Just the one submission in support of that. So we propose to make that change at clause 20 of the dog control policy.
Okay, dokie. Sorry, I think I was on a different one then. So yeah, this is the dog, this is accommodation standards. Yep. All right, barking dogs.
Okay, barking dogs. We did have a verbal submission last week on the barking dogs. This is probably one for Carl to come in on, to be perfectly honest. So we just wanted to be clear as to what we meant by persistent dog barking. Carl, anything?
Through the chair, I mean, that is effectively the summary. At the moment, it's extremely subjective, case by case judgment, staff member to staff member judgment. So it's just about giving some context so dog owners and ourselves have a better understanding of what that definition actually means, so we can be consistent in our approach going forward. So we haven't recommended any change from that.
Okay, thanks, Carl. Any queries around that? No, happy? Right, emergency welfare centre access. People to be allowed to have their family pets with them in an emergency. So very straightforward.
So if there's an emergency welfare centre in what is ordinarily a prohibited area, then under the emergency, then we basically waive that prohibited area status and let them take the dogs in.
All in agreement? Yeah, I'm envisaging all
Totally in support of
chaos
that.
personally.
Totally in support of
I'm going to presume it's on lead for a start, but okay, you'd have all sorts, look like Noah's Ark, wouldn't it, really?
Well, it is very important because, as I say, if it's a relief area for a flood or an earthquake, we have people that are very vulnerable at times, some possibly injured. We can't have pets in those sort of enclaves. Okay, so it's really important that we do maintain these areas free of animals in an emergency area. So
I know that you know, a lot of people won't leave their homes without their family pets, and I think that yeah, in this situation, we'd probably be saving human lives in this case. So, Monty, yeah, I want to just clarify.
Speak clearly, this is a change to allow dogs into civil defence emergency areas.
You would have to have that designated, but in the initial reaction, the main priority is people. And that is in the act as we operate under now. So people have priority. Okay, then animals can be rescued and they can be relocated at a separate area rather than the emergency centre, that we're operating for people.
This would just enable it to happen if the circumstances are appropriate. So in other words, that you can actually, if a centre can be designated for dogs to be allowed there, but it doesn't have to happen.
So would it be fair to say
Standing.
that the civil defence emergency controller's got control? They call the shots. Yeah, this bylaw sits beneath that.
Maybe Wayne can help us.
Okay, yeah, so let's just clarify. So what we're talking about here is the welfare centre access, not the emergency. Yep.
Be designated by the controller of the incident. So,
Yeah, so emergency welfare centre access. So we're wanting to permit dogs into these prohibited areas, into the welfare centre access. So hopefully that's clear for everybody.
Where it's appropriate, but we need to be able, we don't want the bylaw standing in the way of it effectively.
Yep. Damarie?
I've got a pug as a refugee from Hastings at the moment because it's not allowed at the emergency centre where these people are staying because they're off East Valley Farm. So yeah, I love this, that we're being progressive like this.
Thanks, Damarie.
want to guide everybody a little bit here. What it actually says and what I agree with is in emergency welfare areas, centres, and that's where the people are vulnerable and in emergency areas. There could be other areas designated very close that are not in that emergency welfare area. It is just a welfare area.
So we are permitting dogs in the emergency welfare centre. No, that's what we are. That's what we've said here. Just to be. Yeah, them. Wayne, do you want to provide some guidance on? I think we're talking about two different things. Would that be fair?
So through the chair, so it applies to the area when it becomes a civil defence shelter, and that's defined as when a temporary communal shelter for the public while a state of emergency is enforced in that area in accordance with the Act. So it's a communal shelter, to house people in an emergency.
So that's what we're going to allow dogs. We're going to allow dogs into that space. Is that?
Yes, that would be the case.
How does that work for individual places like, so are we saying, sorry, just for me to be clear, are we saying that we're going to change this bylaw, but if an emergency welfare centre is a marae and we don't condone dogs there because of cultural staff, yeah, I can see where Lou's going now.
So through the chair, so a marae wouldn't be, that'd be considered private property, so it would be up for, it's not a public property under this bylaw in terms of what these requirements are. Yeah.
So those who own their facilities will still have control over whether dogs are allowed or not. We're just talking about council-owned public premises that are used as emergency welfare centres. We're all clear?
Yeah, but could that be made clear in the bylaw?
Sure.
Just so that it's not.
So that's community halls, wouldn't be schools or anything like that, it'd be community halls. Huh?
They do use schools.
Yeah, but that's not council land. no, is it?
All right, we're going to move on. I think we've been on this long enough. Okay, we're going to talk about exercising dogs from vehicles, which is on page, and I see this done all the time. This is such a farmer thing to do, right? No, I'm just
Not
joking.
entirely a
So
farmer thing, no.
exercising dogs from vehicles, page 583. So the recommendation here is that we accept the proposed amendment to the dog policy? Oh, over to you, Graham.
I'm going to throw this one across to animal control and Carl, really. Sorry, Carl, but not said much.
Through the chair, I mean, this is one that's come directly from staff observations of what's been happening in the community and concerns that have been raised by staff and by members of the public as a genuine safety welfare issue for a number of reasons. The distraction the dog causes the driver, as well as the lack of control the dog may be under. There's a whole lot of factors there. So it's been significant enough for staff to put forward as a proposal. So.
Yeah, okay, so we're talking about public roads alongside a public road. Mike?
100% agree. It wasn't me, but it was my wife did exactly that. And the dog hit a BMW, cost me a heap of money. Dog got concussed, but yeah, you're right. They're never in control. They see something and they're off.
What happened to your wife?
Okay, so we're prohibiting this activity. Everyone's in favour? Very good. Okay, we're going to move on to the next one is the fencing of exercise
Fencing,
areas.
which is actually an operational rather than a policy issue. A number of submitters talking about fencing off-leash areas. I think a comment was that if you actually have your dog under control, properly under control, as you're supposed to do, then you don't actually need the area to be fenced, because the dog should have really excellent recall. But this really is an operational issue. So nothing really to decide on this one.
Well, it's a pretty big subject because, yeah, a lot of fencing required if we were to move in that direction. So again, it's all about the control of the dog. Any comments? Everyone happy? Leave as is? Okay. All right, the limits on number of dogs, and this is while you're walking them.
Yeah, this is walking. This has, should we say, exercised a few people. There've been some people agree, and a number of people disagree. This is around the maximum number of dogs that you're walking at any one time, and this again is around control. So we've proposed 4 dogs at a time, 2 off the leash at any one time, because it's really difficult. It can be difficult watching 2 dogs. I know from experience we had one dog that would run off ahead and the other would lag behind, sniffing everything. You need eyes in the back of your head at times. So trying to do that with 4 would be rather difficult. So that's what we've suggested. People that have dog walking businesses, if you like, obviously a bit concerned about that and the effect it's going to have on them. People that dog daycare and they take 6 or 8 dogs out or something like that. They've obviously got some concerns, but other people quite happy to see a limit on the number of dogs that are walking towards them. So yeah, that's where we landed. 4 and 2 off, with 2 of them off leash at any one time. Enforcement could be.
So do we have a limit at the moment?
No,
No.
we don't.
Sorry, through the chair, just to clarify, it's 4 off leash in a dog exercise area at one time, and it's just a recommendation in the policy as opposed to mandatory that 2 should be off leash. So have 2 on lead at the time. So the policy only makes it a requirement to have no more than 4 dogs at any one time, and it's a recommendation about what should and should not be on leash with the 2 other dogs. Just to clarify.
It's policy rather than bylaw. Yeah. Okay.
So this is here to accept the proposed amendment only to the dog control policy, not to the bylaw. Claire?
Yeah, so by the sound of it, if people didn't observe it, we wouldn't actually be throwing the book at them.
Yes, so it's the mandatory of 4 in a dog exercise area is mandatory in the bylaw. It's just a recommendation about 2 being off leash. No more than 2 being off leash at any one time is the recommendation in the policy.
So just a few more questions then. So in areas other than dog exercise areas, would it be possible to have more than 4? Because I did notice some of the submitters said, I walk a lot more than 4 dogs at a time. Could I get a license or some kind of exemption? And I actually thought that was quite a good idea. I don't know what staff think about that. Yeah, I'd be interested to know whether or not we could put that an exemption could be applied for if you've got, if you're a professional dog walker, or if you're going to be walking dogs on a professional basis.
Any issues around this, Carl? I mean, is this a problem in our district? I guess I don't want to be telling people how to, you know, how many dogs to walk. It feels a little bit over the top, but what's your thoughts?
Sorry, just to clarify, it's only applies to dog exercise areas. So when you have them off lead, they're saying only 4, but not on lead outside of those areas.
Yeah.
Certainly the majority of significant incidents that we investigate come down to whether dogs are under control or not. So, I mean, that's the whole aim here, is what's a reasonable span of control for a person walking dog. So, okay, some of the numbers might be arbitrary, for want of a better word, but, you know, we need to sort of start somewhere. So that's really what we're trying to get our head around. What's a reasonable number of dogs for a person to be under their control in a public place, because that is certainly where our issues arise. And some of the complaints will have that pack mentality aspect to it as well. The more dogs that are involved, the more significant the event can be. So that's primarily what we're trying to target here in the off-leash environment. Not to say it possibly isn't an issue in the on-leash environment, but at the moment, if a dog's on leash, it's complying. And that's really where you're at. This is about the areas where the dogs are specifically off-leash and the issues that arise. We certainly do get a number of incidents in and around off-leash areas.
In the exercise areas. Okay, Roger.
And can I just have clarification on this? If we have a dog walker that's in the business of exercising dogs, how many dogs can they walk, say, on footpaths or dogs on leash areas? Is there any limit?
No, there's not.
Thank you.
Sorted. Everyone's happy. Yep. So we were just talking about exercise areas.
Can I also seek a clarification from Diana? We've got in the recommendation to propose amendment of dog control policy at clause 7.2. Do we need to amend the bylaw? We don't need to amend the bylaw. Just want to make sure. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
So just one more point of clarification. So you can have sort of unlimited dogs walking along the footpath, as Roger said, but once you get to a dog exercise area, you're down to 4 dogs, 2 on, 2 off. But what if you've arrived with 5 or 6? Because that's what these dog walkers do. So what's the practicality?
The argument there is that immediately you have dogs off leash, you have another whole element to control. You have another whole aspect to the walking of those dogs. I guess is where that theory comes from. So you've got a total number of dogs, but as soon as you let 2 off leash, then you've got 2 up to their own devices that you need to control, in addition to the ones that you still have on leash. So that's where the theory comes from. But 4 versus 6, you have submissions suggesting a different number that may be entertained.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand the 2 off leash. I'm totally supportive of that. Maybe what you arrive with is not what you arrive with, is what you arrive with. But the 2 off leash, yeah, maybe we could just tweak that. It's in the park area, a maximum of 2 dogs off leash would sort of maybe cover everything if there's no real big issues out there.
Through the chair, there is the bylaw, the proposed bylaw would have, you can get council approval to get exemption. So if you were perhaps a dog walker and regularly took, say, 6 dogs into dog exercise area, you could look to apply to council for an exemption to that requirement. And yeah, under the bylaw, you could take 4 dogs off leash. But we've just got recommendations in the policy that you may have better control if you have only 2 at a time.
I'm just wondering around applying for a permit, essentially. How much, is that an annual thing to be, renewed? How much does it cost? I mean, to be fair, I doubt people would be wanting that extra cost or the annoyance of it.
To see the cherry again, I mean, hey, if most of these people surely are dog walkers, and if you pay someone to walk your dog and you find out they're not doing a great job, you're not going to be walking dogs, you're going to lose your business. So it's sort of, it gets back to that question. So there is an issue to make this change. Just confirming there has been enough of an issue to create a change here.
Well, that must be where it's come from. It hasn't come through public submissions. It started in the staff recommendations part of the process. So, I don't have figures in front of me, but certainly, like I said, the majority of what we're dealing with is caused by dogs that are off leash.
In exercise areas.
Well, certainly there are, a number of the complaints we do get are in exercise areas. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's no determination whether they're someone really riding with a single dog or 2 dogs or 3 dogs. No, so there's not, in my mind, there's no firm data around this to make really a change at all, to be fair.
I don't mind looking at increasing the maximum number of dogs, because I mean, 4 is perhaps on the light side if you're a dog walker, professional dog walker. We could make that 6 or 5.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just the off leash. It's not the how many you've got on you sort of thing. On leash, you can have 10 pugs, but you might have 3 huskies. So it's really just the off leash thing here. I just think 2's. I don't know. I just think we're almost creating a problem.
Okay. I'm getting a sense that this is we're after lunch now, so we need to make sure that we're considering all of these carefully. Should we just take a 2-minute breather, everybody? Just take a break. We're just going to look at something in the bylaw here now, just to check something else, because we've got another query around that. So just take a 2-minute recess, please. please. Okay, everyone, welcome back. It was just a nice short break. Okay, so we are still looking at the limit on the number of dogs in the exercise areas. I'm just going to clarify with Diana what you're likely to suggest.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just to recap, so the bylaw currently says that was out and consulted on that no person may, without council approval, take more than 4 dogs into a dog exercise area at the same time. And in light of, I guess, the deliberations on this issue, we thought as a proposal would be to amend that wording so that no person may have more than 4 dogs off leash at any one time in a dog exercise area. So that means lots of people, you could go on with 6 dogs, but you only let 4 dogs play at any one time. And that way that ensures that a person isn't overwhelmed with the number of dogs off leash.
Is Roger happy?
I'm happy with that, and I'm
Good.
willing to withdraw my private comment to you.
Excellent, okay. I'm glad that we have now come to a decision on this particular matter. We will move on to the next item, which is neutering.
Is neutering.
I'm going to start on this.
And we propose that the dog owner should be able to appeal a council notice requiring their dog to be neutered. We had 2 submissions, one supporting the ability to appeal and a general comment on that question, which was basically, yeah, but not dangerous dogs. That would probably be the point you make in your appeal, I would guess. Carl.
Carl, would you like to speak to this?
Yeah, through the chair. So the Act already prescribes a process for a number of controls, including menacing and dangerous classification. So Reg Committee hears hearings against menacing and dangerous classification. So that's already in place. This is a smaller area where we have discretion under the bylaw to issue a notice. So it's a different process. We simply wanted to align the bylaw process with what's already in place with the Act, just a natural justice principle.
Okay, everyone's happy with this, I see, so that's good.
Yeah, natural justice. Yep. So it should be allowed to appeal. Yep.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you. All right, signage.
Signage again, 6 submissions, really people talking about signage, need to be clearer, have more signage and so on. This is an operational issue, but I gather our parks people have got something that they might wish to say on signage.
Yeah, thanks, Graham. So as Graham said, it is quite operational, but just to give you a bit of a flavour of what we are doing with our signage moving forward, we thought we'd chuck a few pictures up on the screen for you to have a look at. So this speaks to, if I think of that Memorial Park example, where these will be on bollards, so sort of wooden frames. So as you walk along the path, you'll come across these. They'll either be, entering a dog prohibited zone, or you now put your dog onto a lead, or conversely, you're now entering a dog free area. So that's what they'll sort of look like. So you have some of those before you sort of go onto the bridge, before you cross into the dog on leash areas, as well as the various variables around the place. So that's kind of where we landed, working with the animal control team. And also there's some other treatments we can do where we can put some branding onto the concrete path as well, like you can imprint etching and things like that. So other ways we can do that as well. And then on our bigger signage, wayfinding signage and identification, we'll have, so yeah, that sort of thing there. So just the icons on the bottom. What we don't want to have is a whole lot of signage litter. Like at the moment, quite a lot of our signage is all a lot of different mixed messaging and quite variable, different sizes and fonts. And we really want to try and get a consistent brand and look on our park. So that's sort of the flavour of what you'll see moving forward. There's nothing specifically planned to roll this out funding wise, so it will be done in a phased approach by either new parks and development or a renewal program until we can maybe get some more funding through the next long-term plan on some other signage as well. So that's sort of where we landed on it.
Thank you, Brad. Okay, I guess does that satisfy everyone? Yeah, and Philip.
Yeah, no, that's good, thank you. So they're obviously large signage, that's large signage there. Will those signs there have the daylight saving hours on it? Because with regards to coastal areas that I'm familiar with, they have seasonal signs which are large that they put up saying dogs prohibited in these areas through these daylight saving hours and these months and things like that. So they're more permanent ones, would you have seasonal ones like the daylight saving to make it really clear? And it seems to be really clear with the public. They have a really good understanding that it's, summer and winter and all that sort of stuff. So both dog owners and non-dog owners or pet owners.
Yeah, thank you. So this suite was designed ahead of this bylaw review process. So we'll be looking to go back and see how we can marry in those new hours and things like that. So we'll work around that, put some detail on it. Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
I think the signage is really important. We talked about enforcement last week, and if we want to increase our enforcement, then one of the places that we can start, I think, is the signage. And particularly in some of the areas that we've mentioned during these discussions where we want to be absolutely clear where an off-leash area starts or where you cross out of the off-leash area into on-leash and so on. So signage is an important part. So yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. If I may, just briefly, it's a little bit like you get a lot of comments around town, 50 Ks and 40 Ks. It goes from one thing to the next really quickly. So yeah, we just got to be really clear. So I get confused a little bit.
Okay, everyone. So we'll move on to waste.
Again, this is an operational matter really, but we've actually had quite a lot of comments in the other submission points around dog waste, and particularly dog owners not picking up the dog waste. And my feeling is that because of owners not picking up the waste, that's causing problems for other dog owners that do, in that we might have said some areas could go to be off leash, but actually because of the waste issues we'll keep it on leash, or we'll prohibit because of dog waste issues. If everybody picked up out of the dogs, then I think a lot of people would be a lot happier. I think there's probably, and because we had the comments around Lake Tekarutu as well about dog waste, and so maybe there's scope for a lot more education with dog owners, maybe making them aware of different products to help pick up the waste and so on and so forth. So I think there's more we can do in this space.
Yep, that's noted in the staff comments pretty much. So
yeah.
Yep, no, all good. Moving on to waste bins.
And the waste bins, there's number of people always asking for more places to dump the dog waste. Carl?
Each bin costs approximately $1,000 to purchase, install and maintain. So I guess this is a cost issue, right? We could put a lot more bins out there, but at the end of the day, there are a lot of non-dog owners as well who are subsidizing the dog owners. So, I see that 45 is probably quite a lot. Did you see a need, Carl, for more?
It's 45 more than many councils provide. It certainly is a trade-off. At the moment, it's been funded out of dog registration fees. So it's that balance between how high do you want your fees versus what services you want. But and we do get a lot of requests for them. A lot of them are around this is where I walk my dog, therefore I want a bin there. But there are still a number of areas on our list that we've essentially said, let's get through this process, see where these new off-leash areas are going to be, and then we'll have a look at it as a bigger issue. So there is an LTP project proposed to bring any new areas up to speed in terms of bins, signage. So that would include, the likes of the new Payne Park area and stuff like that. Now that we've got a steer on where these new areas are, we can look at where we put the bins going forward.
Okay, so that's work in progress then. Thanks, Carl.
But can I just say, yes, I endorse the the concept of actually making it a part of the dog license fee. So it becomes kind of a user pays funding. So, yeah.
So my understanding is that's the existing process, right?
Correct.
Yeah, yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah. Good. Philip.
Thank you. With conversations had before, have we, I think it was this financial year that there was a new contract being, is that a new contractor or was it the current contract that we had before?
Yeah, so as of 1st of July, we started with a new contractor emptying those bins, and yep, I don't think we've had a complaint of an overflowing bin
So it's
since
gonna ask
1st
you,
of
is what have we got 2
June.
months now?
1st of July, sorry, 1st of July they took
Yeah.
over. Yeah, so if there are complaints, they are insignificant compared to previous.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Working dogs.
Okay, we've, I think, covered this point under the Peat Lakes, but just to make sure that the dog prohibition
Yeah.
at the Peat Lakes does include the hunting dogs that are hunting for game and under a control of a licensed game hunter.
Yep.
So in that sense, they are working. Other than that, there are other working dog definitions in the bylaw anyway. So
Yep.
just wanted to make sure that we get those policy and bylaw changes in for the hunting dogs.
Yeah, no, thanks, Graham. That sounds good. Okay, everybody, we are on to other submission points.
And the last one, really, we're not really, these are the sort of miscellaneous ones that don't fit into any particular category. We're not asking for any decisions or any changes here. A suggestion, for example, that around owner education as to how to deal with dogs and so on. That was a submission point that was made by one of the submitters here last week. Some suggestions around dealing with cats as well. Marcus, you might like that one.
We're not going to start
But we're
talking
not
about
actually
cats.
proposing anything more on these. It's just that we accept and acknowledge these submissions points that have been made, not just by these few submitters here, but by all 277 submitters who have taken the time and the effort to make their feelings known. So thanks for all the work that we 277 have created.
All right, no, that sounds good.
But that's
Okay,
what it's
so
all
that
about.
any comments on the other submission points? No? Okay, so what we'll do now is, are there any other items that anyone would like to discuss that we haven't talked about? So before we've got a recommendation to finalise this bylaw now shortly, but I just want to make sure, just asking for, are there any other points that anyone would like to raise before we move to the recommendations? Claire?
Yes, thanks, Liz. It's just that through the submissions, it's made it clear that people are desperate for more areas to exercise dogs, particularly off leash. And I was just going to suggest that, is it possible that when we're doing new developments, that there's sort of one of the things to consider, or a lens to put over future planning is to be providing for dog exercise areas in this way, because I do find it really challenging to find off-leash areas when we lose them in certain places, with the existing reserves and places we've got. But if we're always thinking, right, any new developments, we should actually be catering for this section of our community. Yeah, because I am conscious that as time goes on, it seems like we lose the freedoms with the dogs. They go from off leash to on leash, and then they get prohibited. So and we know that dog population is likely to be increasing. Yeah.
Look, I'd actually really, absolutely support what you're saying there, Claire. It's much easier to plan as we grow in intensity, rather than trying to retrospectively refit something, especially in our urban areas later. So the sooner we kind of start that planning. But I mean, I feel pretty confident that we've got a good balance. here today in the number of off-leash areas that we still can provide. We've opened up quite a few areas we hadn't had before. I think the suggestion of the change of those hours, I think sits a whole lot more comfortably, especially at Lake Te Kutu, with people as well, the change that we made. So I feel like there's a good balance around that. Philip.
And Carol, what Claire's saying, it's no dissimilar to providing playgrounds and access to playgrounds and things. But a really good example is that dog area that's been along the Cambridge Expressway now.
Yeah.
So, and maybe we've got to look at swale areas and all that sort of stuff in the future. But
look, and just to counterbalance it as well, I know that there are people who don't enjoy the company of dogs nor walking around them. So again, I like to think that we've created a good balance of those spaces, community spaces where dogs now are either prohibited or we are encouraging some really good controls as well. So look, just to wrap up, if there's nothing else, first of all, just like to thank those who submitted, the public, 277 submissions. That's exceptional. Well, it's very impressive actually. So it just does mean, of course, that we have had accord with a lot of people. We know that we have an increasing number of dogs in our district, and so we're trying to do the best we can with, finding that right balance, as I said earlier. Like to thank the staff as well. This has been quite a long process. As you can, the report itself, I think how we've been able to work through the submission points by topic has worked very, very well. And yeah, again, just thanks to the whole team, Graham. You've probably been a centre point in this. Thank you for your time and your friend there sitting on the table. And let us say the entire staff around this space as well. So with that, I think we'll move to the recommendations that are now on the screen. Hopefully you can all read them. We've already done quite a few of them already, so we're doing.
Yeah, we got past, because do you want to restate what we have passed?
We've done A, B.
We did A, B on the first day.
C, D.
CD this morning. E has the minor amendments just to add appendix 6.
So just E and F.
Yeah, E and F left.
There's no G?
No.
No, okay. Making sure. Okay, so we just have E and F on that those two recommendations now to move. So can I have a mover and a seconder, please, for those two? Thank you, Roger. Thank you, Dale Marie. All in favour? Against? Carried. And we'll call it a day at 1:58 p.m. Thanks for your attendance, everybody.